So, would you mind telling us first who you are and what you do?
Theo, this is Braddy, Braddy. I'm the executive director of the Center for Independent Living of Central PA. It's a nonprofit organization that is funded by the federal government, and our mission is to eliminate and prevent barriers faced by people with disabilities on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. And we're getting ready here for the Living Well with a Disability Conference and Expo. And would you mind telling us what that is?
Well, it's a very exciting event that we're having for the first time. It's the first of its kind in this area. There's a lot of expos and conferences in the surrounding area, but this type of conference is going to be the first of its kind in the Mid-Atlantic area. I just learned today myself, it's about 3.5 million people living in the surrounding cities within regard to Lancaster, in regard to 2 hours, that could come to an event like this that they, wouldn't have to be travel such a long distance to get to. But the Living Well with a Disability Conference and Expo started based on an idea, a vision that I had in 2007. And it was basically a marketing concept and a service concept that we wanted to better explain what a Center for Independent Living is all about. We used to go through a major explanation in regard to trying to explain what a Center for Independent Living is. It's non-residential, it's run by people with disabilities, and the majority of people with disabilities have to be staffed. And most people that started was a residential setting. So we wanted to come up with a better way of communicating that, and I came up with the vision of the concept of living well with a disability, because it's something we can all understand. Everybody wants to live well, and certainly people with disability want to live well. And the concept behind the Center for Independent Living is developing independent living skills for people with disability. So the problem with that, though, is people can live independently, but that doesn't mean they're living well independently. So it communicated very well to people, and we started that in 2007. But not only that, there are other centers for independent living that serve in the state of Pennsylvania. It's 18. Such as the one that I run here. And one of the other centers in Pittsburgh, Three Rivers Center for Independent Living in Pittsburgh, bought into that concept of living well with disability. They understood it, and they too wanted to adopt it. And so we licensed it, living well with disability, and they became a partner. And during one of our phone calls, the executive director of the Three Rivers Center for Independent Living suggested the idea of why not have a statewide conference in regard to living well with disability. And from that point on, I said, yeah, that's a great idea. So we started to talk about it. We started to plan it, a core group of us. And then another executive director of our state association is called the Pennsylvania Council on Independent Living, which is a governor-appointed organization. The executive director of that organization said, well, we want to put on an expo. And so we just combined the two, Living Well with Disability Conference and Expo. And from that little conversation, and we started to quietly, about a year and a half, putting this conference together. Three major organizations. My organization, the Center for Independent Living, Pittsburgh organization, Three Rivers, and the Pennsylvania State Independent Living Council came together. And now in August 23rd, we have our first of its kind Living Well with Disability Conference and Expo.
How will people attending the conference and expo experience the concept of living well?
Good question. It's a unique experience. It's going to be a unique experience. Let me give you a little bit more background information. Almost 20 years ago today, we did what we call the Independent Living Conference, a statewide independent living conference. And it was called Power Through Knowledge. Almost 20 years ago. The last one, and after that we used to have one, every 2 years. But we had funding for that, state funding for that. The last one we had in regard to independent living conference was almost 5 years ago, and funding ran out. So there's not been a conference where people with disabilities come to and have the opportunity to learn and advocate. And that's what that independent living conference was all about. However, the Living Well with a Disability Conference is taking it to a whole nother level. And we wanted to think outside of the box. We wanted to do something very innovative and make it so different that people just would want to come. And so the answer to your question, why would people want to come and what would they experience, is people with disabilities and their family members and educators all want to educate themselves, all want to have available the different resources and opportunities to improve the quality of life of not only people with disabilities, but the students with disabilities and family members with disabilities. They want those resources and opportunities. There's a lot of stuff out there. With advances in technology, a lot of stuff out there that can benefit people with disabilities, parents with children with disabilities, and seniors with disabilities. A lot of technology that have been developed to improve their quality of life. But nobody have access to that information and that technology. And it becomes very confusing, and there's a disconnect in regard to information and technology and having those resources available to you. And often people will experience what I call a maze of confusion. There's just so many fragmented things out there that they get so confused and just don't know where to go and what to do at a moment where they need access to that information and those resources. The Living Well with Disability Conference and Expo will bring all that to one location. And it will have people there who demonstrate and know exactly what it is to live well with a disability. And people will have that opportunity to try technology out. They will have opportunity to get their questions answered by people who've been doing it and living with a disability for years, experts, if you will. And not necessarily experts, but common people who have through their life situation have learned different ways of navigating through this maze of confusion. And they want to share that information. And so that's what they're going to get. They're going to get that opportunity to remove that disconnect.
Great. I heard you mention there about the last one was state funded. I know there's a bunch of organizations that have lost state funding over time, and especially in recent years, and I'm curious how that has affected your organization, but then also this event. I mean, is this different organizations coming together to make this happen?
Yeah.
And how does that work?
It's really crazy. My philosophy in life with accomplishing different things is you can do amazing things when you don't really care who gets the credit. And as long as I apply that and get people around me to believe in the same thing, it just amazes me how things can get accomplished. And that's what is applying in this situation. We have a small group of people working on a statewide conference that is just somewhat amazing to me, and people are doing it without much financial help from the state in regard to funding and scholarship. We're generating the money from different sources, and although we are getting some monies that is being donated to this project, we didn't get as much from the state as we wanted from some of the state departments, as compared to the amount of money that we received for the Independent Living Conference almost 20 years ago. We got a lot of support, but now with the need of bringing in people with disabilities that can actually benefit from the conference, and typically some of those individuals don't have the kind of money to do this. It costs almost $444 for the 3 nights to be at the hotel, and the registration is about $375 for the conference. And so a lot of the people with disabilities who don't have that disposable income, this is out of their reach, and so we were looking for scholarships to pay for that. Fortunately, we have been able to come up with some additional monies to our board of directors, and they allocated a lot of our unrestricted income to help assist people with disabilities to attend this conference, so we can really target those individuals who will most benefit from this. Otherwise, they might be out of their income level.
Excuse me, but I'm thinking, people with disability, I'm assuming that is something that would be a burden to them. Being that they have extra financial expenses than other ordinary people would have.
Exactly. We was afraid that because of that, not having some of the scholarship monies that now have become available, that we would have those individuals who may be able to afford this type of conference. And typically those individuals may be educators, working individuals, and so forth. And ain't nothing wrong with that, because we need to educate, educators, and they need to get educational credits and so forth. So we knew we could bring that group of people in, but we didn't want to neglect people with disabilities who often may not have the monies to do a conference like that. So it was great to be able to come up with that additional scholarship money. So now we're reaching out to those individuals who could benefit from having a conference like that. But not only that, there's others, and that's another often is another stereotype that we fight, that people with disabilities are all low income individuals, and they're not. There's a lot of working individuals out here who make a very good income doing things that people, able-bodied individuals, don't often think people with disabilities can do. And so those individuals too want to live well. And so we're looking forward to bringing those individuals to the conference as well.
Great. So what will attendees see and do at the conference and expo? What can they expect?
Well, get hands-on experience. A lot of hands-on experience. Like I mentioned earlier, a person with a child with autism, for example, will benefit from a technology expo, a technology session, where we will expert will be talking about the different apps that are available to benefit a child with autism. There's a lot of evidence out there that shows that this iPads and different apps are really aid in the learning and the behavior of children with autism. And a senior, for example, with that is aging into disabilities, and a lot of seniors are. They're aging in regard to disability in the area of hearing or visual, or for that matter, mobility in regard to walking. So people for the first time are aging into limitations, and so they still want to do things. They still want to live well independently, and so they don't often have the knowledge of what's available in regard to home modifications, in regard to driving. There's going to be vehicles there, adapted vehicles for people to drive and maintain their independence. I'm a person who loves to garden. And people with disabilities, there's a lot of adaptive aids that allow people with disabilities to do that. There's going to be a session on gardening. And so as we, people with disabilities continue to experience their limitations in the area of, functional limitation, they still want to do stuff. And right now in this age of technology, it's amazing. So we have over 100 exhibitors coming in, bringing in technology, bringing in doable medical equipment, and different items and adaptive equipment for people with disabilities. And so all of that is going to be available for people to use and try out. One of the worst things that can happen is somebody spend a whole lot of money for a piece of equipment, and they get home with it and they really can't use it, or it won't benefit them in the way that they thought it would. And so with the conference though and the expo, you can test stuff out. Matter of fact, the vendors and the exhibitors want you to test it out, try it out, and if it works for you, then you know where to get it from.
Who are some of the premier presenters, and why are these premier presenters of great interest to the attendees of the conference
Some
and
of the
expo?
premier vendors, for example, Permobil, maker of a major, my chairs are Permobil. They will be there, and one of the new things they have right now is a standing motorized wheelchair, stands you straight up. That's one of the things that people with disabilities who use wheelchairs often don't get an opportunity to do, because they have to get transferred into a standing device, where this chair is a motorized wheelchair that stands up, so you don't have to make a transfer. Matter of fact, one of the celebrities that are coming, Tiffany Adams from the Push Girls, which is a reality show, Permobil is going to actually give her a chair at the expo, and she's going to test it out, try it out, and we got television coverage to come to catch that.
Does she know about this yet, or should we
Yes,
keep
she
it
knows
secret?
about it. She knows about it. And because it was talked about on an actual show.
Okay.
And so this is the first time she's going to actually get and actually get to experience it at the expo. But that's the type of activities we're going to have. We have a new device that's going to be launched. Matter of fact, surprisingly, I have it right here. This is the device right here that allows an iPhone to be continually charged based on the battery to my wheelchair. And often, I'm sure your iPhone users see, how quickly the battery goes on that thing. But mine never loses a charge. And often the iPhone is majorly important for a person with a disability, because in case of being an accident or being stranded somewhere, you need to quickly be able to get in touch with someone. So those type of devices, we got the Pennsylvania Assistive Technology Foundation, which is a statewide organization that gives out free of charge adaptive equipment to people who can use it. And so they're going to be there with a bunch of different devices as well. And Keystone Mobility, Gentleman Door, which is automatic door, a company that puts in automatic doors that in regard to push buttons, or just sense based on sensors, the doors are opening up, which is a major thing for people with disabilities who want to live independently, or be able to go out and shop and so forth. Those are the kinds of vendors and the devices that will be at the expo. But on the conference side, we have a bunch of celebrity guests coming out. I mentioned Tiffany Adams, who is the celebrity and star of the Push Girls. We also have a comedian who has cerebral palsy. His name is Josh Blue. He's a comedian who won Last Comic Standing. And he's going to be putting on a show, a comedy routine. And that should be exciting, because I saw him about maybe 5 years ago in the Poconos, and he's a really funny comedian. And based on the life and the path that he chose to live, demonstrates that a person with a disability can live well. And so all the celebrities that we have coming out or individuals that we believe demonstrate the concept behind living well with disabilities. And I believe, this is my personal belief, that the typical person with disabilities don't often see those role models, and often will get trapped into thinking that they can't do these types of things based on societal attitudes and perceptions. We have another lady by the name of Christina Hans, who's a person who's blind, and she wants another TV show called Master Chef, and she came in first place, and based on her contract, she wrote a cookbook, and that cookbook, I purchased the book, and it's a great book because I love to cook myself. And she's going to be there, and she's going to demonstrate how to make certain dishes based on her cookbook. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that myself. And we have another group called Four Wheel City. It's two individuals who, through gun violence, became paraplegics and are wheelchair users. And now they are a rap group that goes around out of Pittsburgh, goes around and put on a show against gun violence. Got a really great message, and so they're going to put on a performance on Friday night, and I'm looking forward to that as well. We got a lot of stuff planned, and a lot of activities that not only is something that communicate and empower people with disabilities, but it's something that is trying to communicate that a message that goes out to anyone, regardless whether they have a disability or not.
Well, that leads really well into my next question, which is why is, and you touched on this a little bit in the beginning, but why is a conference that's focused on people living well with a disability so important, and why now?
Yeah, I did touch on it a little bit because I told you, almost 20 years ago today, we had our first independent living conference, statewide independent living conference. And almost 5 years ago, that stopped. We ran out of funding. The need is still there, but we don't have the funding. So this Living Well with a Disability Conference and Expo is really replacing that, and so is meeting that gap. And so it's important for people to have this type of a conference and this type of expo because none exists. And so we have for the first time an opportunity to go back and bring back not only something that is needed, but something that is really cutting edge and so forth in regard to the innovative information and the resources and opportunities that we're bringing into Lancaster County, and as well as at the Marriott in Lancaster. Is an opportunity for people in D.C., people in Philadelphia, people in Baltimore, and we're getting people from all of those areas are coming to this one location in Pennsylvania, and we'll experience an amazing conference that is filled with people who are living well, and expo that have over 100 exhibitors and vendors, where people, even from people who are newly disabled, people who are disabled for the first time, and in a situation where they are experiencing a new life, a new way of living, and they don't have the answers, but they need the answers. And so, and that's who we're hoping to attract. Parents with children with disabilities, seniors who are aging into disabilities, people with spinal cord injuries, veterans who are returning home with injuries and amputations, who are serving this country but now returning home and living in an inaccessible world. How do you tell someone who put their life on the line that they can't do what they always wanted to do? Instead you want to provide them with opportunities to do the same old things that they always wanted to do. You know, to, you know, drive, to be able to work. And that's a whole nother area, you know, adaptive equipment in the work environment, you know, that allow people to do this. You know, how do I get to work? I drive myself. Not everybody know about that. Not everybody know about the adaptive equipment that is involved in a vehicle that allow a person with a major disability to drive. But they want to, you know, and so forth. So that's why it is so important to have this type of conference for people for the first time to experience what it is to be able to live well and return back to doing all of these things they always wanted to do before their disability.
Okay, well, hey, thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to the conference and the expo. And I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. A lot of work. But I think once we get there and experience the feel of this conference, I think lives is going to change.